The Spirit has no burden, creates none, and enters into none. The Spirit has no burden, creates none, and enters into none. So we go back to accepting the truth of Spirit as we say, I accept the life-giving, invigorating, dynamic activity of the Spirit. I have another quote for you, and that is from a man considered to be the father of New Thought, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, someone who was very influential on Dr. Ernest Holmes, who founded the Science of Mind philosophy that we teach. And Quimby said this, back of all manifestation, there is a pattern of perfection that you and I did not make. Back of all manifestation, there's a pattern of perfection that we didn't make. In other words, this energy of life, this life force moving through all of creation, within it is what Ernest Holmes called the divine reality, that perfection, that pattern of perfection. Life ever giving of itself to its creation, energy continuing to move into form and back to formless, everything fluid, everything is energy. Everything is energy. Our thoughts, our emotions, it's all energy. Einstein said mass is energy in solid form, but decades before that, Quimby said matter is mind and form. Matter is mind and form. Mind, the energy of the infinite, that infinite one mind source of creation. Matter is mind and form. So everything is energy. Our thoughts, our actions, our words, our emotions. It's energy. And it packs a punch. So many researchers out there have proven that plants respond to emotion. I'm sitting here looking at a beautiful plant that's on a shelf and it's spilling down off the wall. It's beautiful. And every day I come in here and I say, you are so beautiful. I talk to it. And actually, I'm sorry to say there's a plant that's on the other side of the room that's behind a couple of things that I don't see as often, and I forget it's there. And I just realized as I was preparing this talk that, wow, I feel the emotion of gratitude and love all over this plant. I in my mind, in my heart, I'm always thinking and saying, you're beautiful. This other plant that's scraggly and looking kind of rough, I never even noticed until today, and now I've pulled it out and I'm going to tell it every day that it's beautiful and I love it. But the point is, plants respond to our emotion and our words. Water responds to our emotions and our words. The wonderful research by Dr. Emoto, who took water samples and blessed certain ones and then had people spew words of hate and just vile, gross words over others, hate and anger. And then he froze the samples, and the ones that were hated on came back looking mouth just disformed and kind of gross looking, just not looking beautiful. The ones who were praised, those water samples that were prayed over, and words like love and gratitude and appreciation and joy, those water samples came back looking like snowflakes, beautiful crystals, these crystalline formations that were just perfect and beautiful. Works of art, right? Well, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. These bodysuits that we're in, they're made of over 60% water. So you can be sure that your emotional state and your words that you're continually saying to yourself, about yourself, to others, that you're steeping in, that you're letting others say to you, the energy that you are continually swimming in is affecting your life. Then if you look at that over 60% water that we are made of, over 70% of the 60% water is our brain and our heart. The two things pretty much driving the show here, right? Our brain and our heart. 73%, I believe, water. So it matters. It's important. We should, and I don't use that word lightly. I rarely use the word should, actually. But we can and we should, I will say it, use our words and our emotions constructively to align with this life pattern of perfection. This life pattern of perfection. We can align with it when we clear out the gunk. That's my technical word. When we clear out the gunk that this perfect life-giving essence has to go through to express as us. If there are things gunking up the channels, We're going to get gunk in our experience. I don't know why that's my word today, but anyway, it's true. We are our body of belief, our thoughts, our emotions, our feeling nature, our beliefs. That's the filter that this perfect pattern, this life's perfect pattern is moving through us, but it's moving through us in such a way that it has to go through our filters. So if we have a filter that says not good enough, not loved, not appreciated, I just don't believe. If we have a filter that is constantly worried, a filter that is constantly judging, then the pattern of perfection is not allowed to show up as joy and harmony and peace and abundance and health in the way that it could otherwise in our lives. So life is moving uncompromisingly through us unless we compromise it. Ernest Holmes said this: disease is a compromise we make with life. Dis-ease is a compromise that we make with life. So you have this perfect life principle moving through all of its creation, self-giving to its creation, abundance and health and harmony and all good things. And then it goes through us, and we have the opportunity to align with that or to cut off the flow of that. It's very important that we don't move into a place of beating ourselves up, spiritual abuse here, and say, oh, I should be doing better. That's not serving you either. Being with what is and seeing how can I do better. That's where we want to be, and looking at the filters that life is moving through us and produce. And all we have to do is look at what it's producing, and then we know what our filters are. You want to know what you believe, look at your life. So tools for aligning with life's pattern of perfection are mental, emotional, and spiritual equivalents. Moving into creating in our lives a mental equivalent, an emotional equivalent, and a spiritual equivalent. We talk a lot about this in class, and I'm happy to let you know, little heads up, we're going to fall into abundance this fall. Another prosperity class is in the making, so we will be jumping into another prosperity class, probably November. More details on that to come, but we're going to fall into abundance. But one of the things we talk a lot right off the bat in the abundance class and the prosperity classes is creating a mental equivalent. And a mental equivalent is a picture, really. It's just having a picture. What does it look like to have the job that you really want? What does it look like to have the relationship that you really want? What does it look like to have the world, the government, the environment that we want? What does it look like? That's our mental equivalent. And then what does it feel like? That's our emotional equivalent. That's where our imagination really, really fuels our manifesting, is to get into the emotion of it. The feeling gets the healing. You've probably heard that. Getting into that emotion. But all of these need to come after the spiritual equivalent. The spiritual equivalent is when we recognize the truth, the spiritual truth of something. When we recognize the spiritual truth of something, that fuels our treatments. Treatment is our word for affirmative prayer. I'll tell you more about that in one second. So that fuels our treatment when we get in touch with the spiritual equivalent. But if we jump right to the mental equivalent and emotional equivalent, where we really have a tendency to do that, it's sort of a little gimme. It's a wish list more than a realization. And I encourage you to spend time in the spiritual equivalent first. Spend time in the spiritual equivalent. I'm going to give you some examples of those in just a moment. But first, treatment is our form of affirmative prayer. We use the 5-step method. First step is we realize that there's one power and one presence moving through all of life. It is God the good by many names, by whatever name you give it. And as it moves through us, that brings us to step 2, that I'm one with it. Step 2 is unification. And step 3 is where we insert an affirmation. We affirm. We affirm in the present tense. We affirm in the first person. This is where we claim, we accept, we align, we know. And then step 4 is thanksgiving. And step 5, we release. So let me give you some examples. I'll give you some examples, my personal examples that came to mind when I was preparing this talk. Like I said, in prosperity class, a lot of times we will create mental equivalents right off the bat. We've done things like vision boarding, treasure maps, intention trees, these different things to bring our mind clearly focused on what it is we want to bring into the physical form. So I remember one year when I was first became a minister, I think it was 2005, and I was teaching a class, and so I decided to do my own vision board as well, and I put on there a white SUV. I didn't really care what kind of SUV. I just wanted it to be the right and perfect one for me, good gas mileage, lots of headroom, lots of leg room, and I wanted it to be white. So I cut out a picture of a white SUV, I put it on my vision board, I put it on my desk, and it was on my desk for maybe a year and a half or so. I had this kind of tucked away, and it kept getting tucked further and further away, but I left it on there for a little while, and then kind of forgot about it. I think I ended up changing my desk around, my office around, and wasn't there anymore. Then fast forward a few years, I'm driving a white SUV, and I remember my vision board. And I'm thinking, this looks exactly like the white SUV that was on my vision board that I completely forgot about. The white SUV became the reality. And then another one that I think about, that was probably 8 years ago, I think, give or take. I had this purple Post-it on my desk, and I wrote on it. It's been on my desk ever since. Only 8 years ago, it wasn't my reality. But here's what it said. My relationships are loving, harmonious, nurturing, and fun. I expect this, I claim this, I am this. My relationships are loving, harmonious, nurturing, and fun. That was so not the reality I was living. But I kept saying it every single day. My relationship is loving, harmonious, nurturing, and fun. Oh, I expect this. I claim this. I am this. My relationships. And I meant one specific. That primary relationship was really the one I was focused on at the time. I wanted a primary relationship, a life partner. And I wanted that relationship to be loving, harmonious, nurturing, and fun. And then, fast forward some years, I am married to a woman who is amazing. She's loving. Our relationship is harmonious. It's nurturing, and it's so much fun. So I think about, wow, I could have saved myself a whole lot of struggle waiting for that car, a whole lot of struggle waiting for that relationship. So what happened? And I really started just thinking about that again, preparing for this talk. What happened, Snow? Why couldn't I have had that a little sooner, the relationship, the car? And I realized it's very clear, because at the time, I was super focused on the end result. Super focused on the end result. So focused on the end result, I was giving none of my attention, none of it, to the beginning cause. I was focused on the end result of having that white SUV. And then I kind of let it go. I didn't keep my focus. But with the relationship I did, man, I was super focused on that little purple Post-it. I was super focused. But I was so focused on the end result, I forgot to focus on the beginning cause. You see, the beginning cause is that spiritual equivalent. The beginning cause is, I'm loving. I'm harmonious. I'm nurturing. I'm fun. I am those qualities of the divine moving into expression. So when I focus on the truth of that, I know the truth of me. And when I live from the truth of me, I can't help but attract the truth of me. Duh. But that's okay. It takes what time it takes, right? It takes what it takes. But don't stop. Keep doing the work. It takes what it takes until that's what I mean by truly embodying a thing, truly aligning. And focusing too much on really focusing all our energy on the end result is more of a treating the universe like, just a gimme God, instead of a relationship where we realize the goodness, the omnipresence. We realize that it's flowing through us, and all we have to do is open up and get out of the way. So let's talk about some examples that I've had recently. I had an example. I have an example to share of someone that wanted to treat for perfect circulation in his body. Perfect circulation, right? Perfect circulation. So let's break it down and let's look at the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual equivalent. The mental equivalent, you envision the blood moving through the body. You envision the blood going through the veins. You see it. You know that it's moving. You see it moving through easily, regularly. And then the emotional equivalent, you feel the warmth of the blood moving through your veins. You feel the energy that the blood, when properly circulated, is giving all your organs, all your cells, the energy it's giving you in life. So that's the way you focus on the mental and the emotional equivalent. But how about the spiritual equivalent? You recognize that there's a circulation of divine life through everything. That there is a circulation of divine life through everything, through all of its creation, that a perfect life principle is circulating through all of creation. And so when we move into that, we recognize and know. You might say something like this in your prayer: I recognize and know that it is circulating through me now. This perfect divine life is circulating through me now. Through my body of affairs, life flows perfectly through me now. That would be a good portion of an affirmative prayer for perfect circulation. So I was thinking about examples. What's another good example I could give? Because I want you to use this. I want you to use this in your life. It means nothing if we're not putting it into practice. It means nothing. But it means everything when we are. We can create amazing things in our individual lives and in our collective lives. Dr. Ernest Holmes said, I can't wait until I have 500 or even 1,000 people that use this teaching to create a better world. That was back in the 1930s. There's well over 500 and well over 1,000. There's lots and lots and lots of people using this beautiful teaching to create a different life experience individually and collectively, but we have to use it. So another example that's real important for us to use, especially right now, is peace in our world. So mental equivalent, what does it look like? I see people being kind to one another. I see people treating each other with dignity and respect. I see people working across what used to be cultural divides and divides across race and divides across religion. I see people working together, respecting one another. I feel that energy of oneness. I feel what it feels like for people to be living in harmony. And then I go into that spiritual equivalent, and I know that there is an intelligent source that's operating through everything. And intelligence, by its very nature, has to be in harmony. Otherwise, it would destroy itself. It wouldn't be very intelligent. So there's an intelligence moving through life and expressing. And so I step into that. I allow that to be my experience. I allow that to be me. The activity of the Spirit. I accept the life-giving, invigorating, dynamic activity of the Spirit moving through me, this pattern of perfection. I accept that moving through me. I am in that spiritual equivalent. And from that place, I might say something like this: I recognize and rely upon the intelligence of the universe moving through my life. I recognize the source of all life is a loving and giving source. Knowing this is true, I see and feel this as my reality. I see and feel this as my reality for myself, for my world as it manifests as peace, as justice, as equality and inclusion and love for all people. A life of peace. A life of peace. I expect this. I claim this. I am this. I love those words. I love those words. Emma Curtis Hopkins said similar things in her Radiant I Am poem that is absolutely life-changing. You should look it up. But I expect this. I claim this. I am this. And that's why we're focusing this month on being that peace and the effect that we have on the world when we show up as what's possible, as a pattern of perfection that is a pattern of peace. Really, At the center of the pattern of perfection has to be peace and harmony. And so I align with that. I show up as that. I am living as the activity of spirit that is that. And in so doing, I'm creating a life of peace and not a life that's in pieces. We, together, are creating, I believe it, I choose to see it. We're creating a life of peace and not a life in pieces, a world in peace and not a world in pieces. It's up to us. We get that opportunity to choose it, like that beautiful song by Jack Fowler, I choose joy. I choose peace. I choose gentle, sweet release of anything that is opposite of this true pattern of perfection, this true pattern of peace, of love, of inclusion that is inherent in the energy of the universe. When I have a desire, I honor it and know that I wouldn't have it if everything needed for its fulfillment wasn't present within it. The ancient Indian texts teach us that. The Upanishads, the Vedas. Inherent in every desire is the mechanics for its fulfillment. I have a desire. I have a desire. Join me in that desire that we live in a world of peace, inclusion, justice, equality, love, overflowing connection, the beloved community, not just this spiritual community, but the entire global community, that we move into a place where we know and we live and we act as anything is possible. We live in a world of peace, not a world in pieces. We align ourselves with this truth. I see it. I expect it. I claim it. I claim it by having and keeping the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual equivalent vibrating as my truth. Join me in that. And we will continue to create peace. I thank you. And so it is.